Welcome to the Alchemy of Ascension Season 3, harmonizing light and shadow to embody your mystical power and purpose. I'm your host, Washela Sananda, and today we get to have a conversation with the lovely Solara Rose. Welcome, Solara.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to see what beautiful mystical terrain we venture into today.
I am too. It'll be a lot of fun. I'm sure of that. So let me start by just reading a little bit from your bio. There's so much more, but this will just give our viewers a little background on what you've been up to.
Yeah.
Solara Rose is an acclaimed channel and catalyst for high frequency flow mastery, abundant expansion, and thriving divine success. She has been described as the modern Tesla of human energetics and living vortex of cosmic magic. With a background in intensive personal transformation, integrative sciences, philosophy, and psychology, she's who visionary leaders seek to support accelerated quantum growth in all areas of their life. Solara is the founder of Infinity Collective, Liquid Nirvana, and The Diamond Octave. Best-selling author and speaker, she hosts live and virtual channeled workshops and group flow activations, and so much more. So we're just getting started. So
uh,
I'd love to just kind of dive in and start with your origin story. How did you become this multidimensional person that you are, and a little bit of a background on, were you born this way? Did something happen? How'd you get to be who you are now?
yeah, this is such a loaded question. Always so interesting for me to even kind of like retrograde into because I'm so in my present moment now that so many of those lifetimes seem like aeons ago because in many ways they were. But I mean, I have deep recollection of being the infinite self. So on one level, I remember and recall all of my incarnations, but specifically before incarnating into this beautiful sacred holy body temple, I remember being a star being on Sirius, and another star being came to me and vibrationally communicated, "You are needed on Earth." And so when I got the message and the memo, I just came down here. There was no hesitation. There was no thinking about it, questioning it. Although on my way down into a human body, I remember having the awareness I can endure anything temporarily. So I knew it was not going to be an easy journey, that I had a lot to unearth. And so when I incarnated, I had full recollection. I mean, even my mom would reflect to me memories of me just being like a little Bodhi and just so peaceful and calm as a child, as a baby. And I was so happy to see just my siblings playing, and I was just at deep peace in my being. And then at a very early age, around 4 or 5 years old, and I have deep seated memories of my childhood also. Just a lot of volatility started to arise in my family unit, in my life, in the world, and it was very jarring for me because I was holding such an expanded, deep, rich, warm, um, harmonized divine frequency, and so I had a bit of um, trouble and struggle, and all of that, being introduced to that depth of density and dissonance in my experience. And so, of course, that unfurled over the course of my lifetime. I opted into and selected a lot of highly catalytic initiatory experiences. So, if you can imagine what we go through as human beings, and in many of the ways that we struggle with our health, with our relationships, with our finances, meeting these deep shadow aspects of my own subconscious mind to ultimately become fully harmonized and illuminated in the light. And there's still micro aspects that I have the honor of unearthing and merging with and celebrating and allowing to unlock more wisdom and power and potential in me still to this day. But I know that I opted in for that wild ride so that I could have the diverse array of experience, direct experience that allows me to powerfully support others and guide others through their journey and what they're experiencing. Because it's one thing to have knowledge and wisdom, and well, at the higher levels, that's ultimately what we're going for, is true knowledge and true wisdom. But to have a certain level of education and intelligence that we gain through the digestion of externalized information, but to have those very direct, immediate, visceral experiences, there's nothing quite like it. And it really unlocks so much true wisdom and insight within us that allows us to become fully illumined and embodied in our own experience, but also to really support others through the lens of empathy and compassion, and also clarity and knowing of where everything is going, what trajectory we are on as a consciousness. So, we could get into the specifics of that, but that's a whole autobiography. It's a very long journey, but I'm happy to explore different facets of that as we move through the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like you were just kind of born open and had the I suppose the foundation of not shutting down, which is really pretty unique. A lot of people forget, a lot of people that are born wide open sort of shut down those memories or push them away because life is life, and it can be difficult to be, feel different and not be supported. Were you in a family environment where your parents were able to sort of support your being open and staying open?
Well, no, actually, it was quite the opposite. And the beauty, and I just want to preface this: we all have extraordinary, beautiful, loving relationships now. We're all best friends, but we definitely had a lot to teach and remind one another. So my family, was actually very volatile. So I was raised Catholic, and I always had a deep inner knowing of what source was, of what divine intelligence was. I knew the purity of love that I was connecting into, but it was it was in contrast to what I was experiencing as my lived, physicalized reality and experience. So, I was an altar girl. I went through the whole process of what it means to be in the Catholic Church. And it was really beautiful in some of those spaces. But then behind the scenes, there was a lot of physical, mental, and emotional violence and abuse that was happening. So that created a lot of discord in me because I was confused. I had this strong, powerful inner knowing and inner voice, but what I was experiencing was the precise opposite of that. So I had to really find resolution in my own being throughout the course of my journey to really reconcile all of that, and then ultimately come to a space of empathy for what everybody else was experiencing, and
Mhm.
why these things were happening. Um, yeah, so
Yeah.
so there wasn't the support of that, but what I had to learn how to do, um, well, was to trust each opening, trust each expansion, to continue to allow the light to penetrate and emerge from my own vessel, my own DNA blueprint, and to just really stay with and trust that process, even in the volatility. And that unlocks such a depth of mystical wisdom and awareness, because when you're in the fire, when you're in the middle of the forest with all of the wild animals surrounding you, and you're called to sit at the core of peace in your beingness, what that allows for is a profound space of transformation to open up. So I got to witness how me selecting that deep-seated peace actually changed the reflection and the reality, and all of those wild animals became benevolent and shifted in my presence. So what I recognized in that was why I chose those initiations, was because that was really what I was desiring at a soul level, was to unlock that depth of gnosis and power, ultimate power, true power, through unification in my experience. And so what better learning ground
Yeah, exactly. And that is, the harmonization of the light and shadow. And I love how you just centered right into, choosing the peace amidst the chaos, amidst the storm. And I feel like right now, that's the area that so many people need guidance in, because the world seems to be in a lot of polarity, a lot of chaos. And what I'm hearing, from clients and people is it's difficult to stay centered when there's all this chatter out there. It's political and religious, and the just
Mm.
everything going on can be unbalancing. So maybe you could speak into a little more deeply, um, how did you get centered? How did you make that choice? I know for a lot of people, even just shutting off the television and the news is a difficult choice, but once made, it's very balancing. So what were the types of things that you did and do to this
Yeah.
day that help you stay balanced amidst the storm, so to speak?
Yes. So I am, there's many dimensions to this. And of course, this is the multidimensionality of it, but I prioritize myself, my connection, my God self embodiment, and the pristine purity of my space, my environment, my relationships, my nutritional choices, what I choose to ingest and code myself with, frequentially and informationally. So what I listen to, what I absorb, what I'm tuning into within myself. And that has been a journey, because of course where I started out, I had a lot to rewire in my system. I had very unfruitful habits that were born of not feeling worthy, feeling um, abandoned and not enough, and all the things that arose from being in, the family structure that I was in. So I had to rewire all of that and really release a lot of habits that had a strong hold on me, that but were very degenerative in nature, I knew weren't serving me. So I prioritize purity, and I really look at what choices does my God self make. And then I integrate those choices in my life, and I prioritize coming back to that center, because that depth of pure power is what we're ultimately seeking. And it is so good. I mean, it is like, it's just, if I may, it's the ultimate orgasm of knowing the self, being the self, embodying the self, and embodying that depth of fulfillment. So it's that orgasmic fulfillment that we receive by simply knowing who and what we are, and our power to create profound shift and change in our reality, and that there is nothing external to us that can dictate, determine, or influence our experience unless we are choosing to allow it. And so when we really recognize that and know that, the the joy and the bliss becomes super consciously creating our reality and programming our own inner world to mirror and reflect and refract the reality that we want to be inhabiting back to us. And so, you know, one of the ways that I love to empower people, the self, is through the reminder that, we are the collective. We are the world. The world is an emanation of us. And so if we give our power away to a separate other, we create a duality. So there's also a really beautiful space and place of sealing that subtle, nuanced gap where in dualism, where we have created self and other, and recognizing that it's really only one unified field of being that is emanating from the nucleus in the core of us. And then the outer world is an extension. And so we don't have to give our power away to anything that's happening socially, economically, politically. We create the world that we desire to be experiencing in here, powerfully, firmly, strongly, and we encode ourselves with that and enrich ourselves with that, and really accept the truth of what's already actualized. if we, get to the core of it, because ascension, actualized ascension timelines are here and available for us to choose and to accept and to receive. And as we integrate that completion within our being, then those are the realities that we land in. And we talked into the, or spoke into this a little bit on our call the other day, but it's there's an infinite amount of Earth's realities, timelines, perceptions that we can be experiencing and choosing in any moment. So we can choose the Earth that is already harmonized, that is already thriving, that is already crystallized in its greatest expression of light, of truth, of divinity, of harmony. We can select that. We have that power. And so going internal and choosing that. So then it just becomes, what's most important to us? Would we really, truly rather be, do we desire to live in those realities, or do we desire the old habits that we've grown accustomed to?
Yeah, that's and that's a deep well of it goes really deep in that
Yeah.
the outside reflects the inside. And people would say that don't really have the full concept of that, but I didn't choose COVID, or I didn't choose this lockdown. We're talking about what's going on right now, or what's going on politically. And yet there is a choice in the interaction with it, and the choosing in every moment to, where are you putting your attention right now? Are you putting your attention on what you don't want, or are you putting your attention into what you want to create, what you do want, what you're desiring to experience? And so the practice then is staying focused on the desired, but acknowledging the shadow stuff as it comes up, which it inevitably will. So can you speak into that a little bit more?
Yeah. So which aspects? Being with the shadow elements that.
Well, okay, so for instance, what I teach about, when we're talking about ascension and conscious light creation, the outside's always reflecting the
Yes.
inside. And as we level up, as we sort of learn to hold more light in the body, hold a higher frequency, that shadow stuff's inevitably going to come up to be cleared. And how do we not get caught up? Do you have some techniques? Maybe this is a better way to phrase
Yeah.
it, for releasing what comes up, not just for you, but for, your family or your lineage or the global collective even, because inevitably that stuff is going to show up in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a lot here. And so I'm going to bring through a really powerful frame that allows us to be at choice and decision in our creative landscape. So, for about a solid decade, I was going through the non-ending well, as you know, of shadow, of dissonance, of discord, of fear, of anxiety, of trauma. And I remember being in my space one day, and I felt I was like, when is this going to end? When are we going to reach the bottom of this well? Where is it? And I was actually in a space of, I was still unearthing quite a lot of grief and sorrow in my being. And my immediate instinct was to go put on a song that was sad to help me feel the fullness of that sorrow sometimes I required that catalyst to help, to facilitate the emotional release, the cathartic release. And I went to go and put on a song that I knew would just draw it all up out of me and allow me to really go there. And I had the awareness myself, gave me the awareness. Well, you can do that. And you've been doing that, for a significant period of time now. You could keep going down that well, or you could choose anew. You can choose something entirely different. So in this moment, you can go and put on a song that will support the elevation and the expansion and the harmonization of your energy, your field, your emotional body, your mind, all of that. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to try it with both of those dynamics present simultaneously, having that sorrow that I knew I wanted to unearth, and also the very real choice point of, well, what if I can actually just intentionally pivot into something else? not to, well, we'll call it strategically ignore, not to not be aware that that possibility was there for me to go into those depths and unearth all of that sorrow and grief as I had been doing for so long, but to recognize that as an option and to choose something else conscientiously, not in resistance to going there, but as a choice to wire in something completely new so that I could have a new experience in my life. And so I tried it and I put on, music, and I started dancing around, and I had one of the best days that I had had in such a long time because of that choice point. And so for us in our experience now, it's really what I see is that we are aligning to the quintessential reality that is here, that is unwavering, that is the eternal, everlasting truth, the divine genius that is present everywhere in all things at all times and is who and what we truly are. So aligning our perceptions and our inner knowing to that ultimate reality that we see reflected, the pattern of which we see reflected through our fingerprints, through all of nature is a glorious representation of this precising geometric mathematical intelligence of genius and the Tao that moves through all things. So we have this opportunity to harmonize with that, cultivate that, and receive that is the ultimate reality, and then continuously align to that and be at decision and choice in our reality. So to look at, when those aspects are arising, one of the ways that I harmonize with them is I would look directly at them and I would just accept their beauty. You are a part of creation. You are source. You are the divine. You are me. I love you unconditionally and I embrace you fully. And as I would merge with those aspects of my shadow or my unconscious, I would liberate so much power. And then from that point of just simply acknowledging it, looking at it straight in the eyes, seeing it through the eyes of the beloved, embracing it, I could then shift into, immediately pivot into something completely new that was aligned with that reality. Okay, I am here and I am at decision and I am at choice. How do I want to feel right now? How do I want to direct my thoughts right now? And so one of the techniques, and this has been neuroscientifically proven through all of the glorious breath work techniques that we have, box breathing, holotropic breathing. I'm sure many people are familiar with Wim Hof breathing methods and all these ways that we can stimulate a profound instantaneous shift in state and consciousness. One of the ones that was the most effective amongst groups of people who had a relatively harmonious upbringing and those with deep-seated trauma was to stand up and take the stance of the Vitruvian man with feet shoulder width apart, planted in the earth, arms wide up in the sky like this, and to just simply say, I am so excited. I am so excited. I am so excited. And it created the most powerful and pronounced state shift in that moment. And that's how instantaneously we can choose anew. We can shift our reality. And when we choose to think differently, to feel differently in this here and now, our entire creative reality and hologram, including all of the people in it, all of our life circumstances, our state of health and well-being, our finances, all of it updates to reflect us immediately and simultaneously through that entire unified quantum holographic field of genius immediately. And so we get to decide where do we want to go in our creative landscape. How do we want to be with ourselves? How do we want to dance with ourselves? And I think that we're at a profound point right now where we're recognizing I am that I am that I am. I'm the divine God, self source creator of my reality. And I'm going to choose to be at choice. How do I want to feel? How do I want to be in this moment? And so a lot of those unconscious patterns that arise within us are habits that we have cultivated. We have grown accustomed to going down a specific pathway. And so we get to reclaim the fullness of our power to make new choices and to create new grooves and to therefore create a new reality. And we're really starting to step into that space as a whole of, okay, it's in a really practical example of this is, if we're wanting to shift our nutrition habits, we can recollect and review all of the choices we have made up to this point with our nutrition and our health, and we can go through that. We can reflect on what worked, what didn't work. What we could also do is just simply go, what works for me now? What is effective for me in my experience now? What will feel the best in my body and in my system? And to powerfully create those shifts. And to just make the choice to choose anew, and then to release what no longer serves, by choosing anew. And so we don't really have to do anything with the old story. We don't have to do anything with the old narrative, is what this is coming to, unless we opt into that. But it's not an essential component to moving forward. We can just powerfully choose a new narrative in our experience.
Yeah, I love what you said about embracing that part that maybe we've been pushing away, the part that we don't want to look at, and seeing it with the eyes of the divine, and letting it be, part of who we are, and then we release from that, and that's where the expansion is. And I find, as long as we hold resistance, as long as we don't want to look at something, whatever it is, we tend to have more separation, and then experience more separation. And then we can just embrace those parts that we haven't wanted to look at or embrace or feel. And amazing things happen.
Yes. And so with that, to bring it, so beyond the level of story, what this all comes down to is, are we experiencing depth, harmony in our being? Are we experiencing some level of discord? And so the resolution for that is to always melt back, come into ourselves, connect into our creative sensual centers, which is the seat of letting go, and creative fertility, creative genesis in our sacral solar chakras, energy vortices, and to just lean back and go, okay, I'm just not going to be in resistance right now. I'm going to open to receive love. I'm going to let that light kiss, infuse with, and merge with the parts of my being that I've held in resistance, that I have, where I've been holding on to contraction and discord. I'm going to breathe deeply. I'm going to reharmonize and recenter in my being, and I'm going to let the light in. And the moment that we make that frequency shift, that state shift, everything shifts to mirror and reflect that back to us. So it's just kind of, it's surrendering into what is unfolding for us with that love. And one of the ways that I had to do this for myself, because there were moments when I would be, I'd be tremoring inside. There was such a depth of vulnerability, and this is a vulnerable piece to bring forth on this. But I just want to, the depth of trauma and contraction that I was holding in my system. I did not have a menstrual cycle until I was 30 years old, because I was holding so tightly that there wasn't even that degree of contraction release in order to have that cycle. So I had to really go, unwind the depth of tightness and trauma in my system. And one of the ways that I would do that is I would place my hands on and I still do this every day as an act of self-love. I just rub my hands together, golden white light, and I speak truth into my body and into my being, as source would me, as my God self would with me. I love you. I cherish you. I celebrate you. I honor you. You are perfect. You are whole. You are complete. You are divinity embodied. And I infuse those frequencies into my vessel until I know that to be the absolute truth of my being and my essence. And I gift that to myself. And this is, again, why self-love is the ultimate key, because self-love here allows for grand self-love. And that's the ultimate mystical power, is harmonization with the self and the all, and the self in all. So that grand self-love is, we're only engaging with the purest reflection of our being, but that comes through reminding ourselves of and accepting the truth of who and what we are as that energy. And that's where it all begins. So the shadow, any place in space where the light has not entered, the resolution is to breathe, to center, to ground, to come in, to allow, to open, to trust, to let that light penetrate and emerge from within us.
What a beautiful practice of just embracing yourself and allowing yourself to speak into your divinity and your self-love and self-empowerment and into the body. That's so amazing. And just to let the cells receive that divine harmonization. What a great practice. You do that daily? Is that part of your, like, do you have a morning routine?
Oh, well, yeah, I have a life is a ceremony routine. And yes, I also have, morning practice and an evening practice. And one of the really powerful tools that I would love to offer to everyone, it's kind of a revolutionary form of EFT that was downloaded to me, because when I was introduced to EFT, also, well, I suppose it's been almost 15 years now. One of the components, because I'm very aware of how the mind works, the grander networks of mind. It's how our electromagnetic fields connect into the holographic electromagnetic field and divine mind that weaves its essence through all things. And when we were going through the tapping points and we were releasing, we were speaking into all the things that we wanted to release, the quote negative or perceived to be negative attributes, in order to bring online some of the positive attributes. I love and accept myself, all of that. I really recognized that I didn't need to go through the first portion of that, because we could be activating things to release that we don't actually need to release it. So what I was observing in myself was profound, shift and change, and miracles were unfolding in my life, but also right alongside some really deep, intensive, cathartic releases and having to let go of certain things in my life. And I thought, well, how do we get the glory of this without having to have those things occurring right next to each other? How do I get to the full unification of self and live in my full God self embodiment, those, realities that are accessible to us, what we would consider heaven on earth, which is just, really embodying those frequencies throughout all dimensional facets of our energy and consciousness. And so I started to tap on the tapping points, because the mind is unconditional. It does not have a filter. It absorbs and receives every single thing that we give to it and accepts it as truth. It goes, you go, I am happy. It goes, okay, I am happy. Which then, triggers the neurochemistry in our body, which creates our emotional state of being. So I started to go, okay, what if I just get super clear on what I want to be, who I want to be, what I want to feel, what I want to experience, what I want to live into, and just go directly to coding that in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started to tap on all the tapping points and do I am statements, I have statements, and I am so thankful and grateful now that. And I would fill in that blank with the narrative in the novel that I wanted to unfold and be living into and experiencing in my reality. And I have had this as one of my most profound practices, because out of the whole treasure chest of tools and technologies that I have through my lived experience and through my education, all of this one specifically has created the most quantitative, high quality shifts in my reality, and at an exponential rate. I mean, we're talking immediately, and it's like worlds dropping into worlds, having a whole new dream world of my design drop in and crystallize in my current physicalized reality extremely rapidly. So this is something that I'd love to give it to everyone. And as you do this, one of the things that I do is I'm having a conversation with myself like I am my lover. And so I'm going there. I'm going all the way into, what do I want my experience to be like as I'm dialoguing with my lover? I am so thankful and grateful now that, and I'm really infusing that with the power of tapping on the meridian points to create new neurotransmitters and to support the firing of my neurons in a new direction to create a new reality. while also energizing that with the power and the beauty and the wisdom and the voluptuous um love of my heart. And I'm also bringing the vision to life, and I do this every single day, and it has created radical and pronounced shifts in my life. So I invite everybody to, if you're not familiar with EFT tapping, there are many videos on YouTube that will guide you through the primary tapping points on your body. And as you do that, to really feel into and vision into your heart, your soul, what you desire. And as you're speaking this, and I speak it out loud too, because this is the power of linguistic artistry fused with emotion. And I really animate and augment those realities in my being so that I'm fully embodying them. Um, so it's a full on experience that I'm having with myself, and I code myself for that. And I do that daily.
I love that. And, I've certainly experienced EFT a lot. And I remember, so for anyone watching that's not familiar, EFT normally starts out with a statement about it's something you really want to overcome. So if you're feeling anxiety, you would do these tapping techniques and say, even though I'm feeling this anxiety, I deeply love myself. Or you'd say, but you'd have that anxiety statement in there. And so it sounds like what you're saying is you just take that out and upgrade the statements and tap it in as coding. And that sounds really amazing. Really
Yeah,
powerful.
it's super powerful, because I started to get to the point of, well, you finally recognize I am creating in every single micro moment and nanosecond of my reality. Everything. I'm creating everything. So do I want to create something for myself to overcome? Do I want to create an experience where I have to show myself that I am unstoppable? Do I want to have, and I just became acutely aware that I was even creating those scenarios, the whole,
Yeah.
the warrior narrative, the whole, being in those archetypal embodiments. And I got to a space where I'm like, I just want grace and ease. That's what I want. I want grace and ease and ecstasy. I want my creation to shower me with love and beauty and blessings, and I just looked at, well, what do I actually want? And do I really want to hardwire that into my system so that I'm creating scenarios that I now have to overcome?
Mhm.
Or do I want to release that narrative as a possibility from my reality and shift into something new? So I was getting, laser lucid clear on, what do I actually want here? What do I actually want to be creating and stepping into, and becoming aware of how I was creating some of those narratives. Where I was just
Yeah.
did that hero's journey, and really recognizing my power to change it, to reflect what I actually wanted.
So did you say that's part of are you given a download about that or to the group? I think you might have, I don't know, I missed what you said there. Is that part of your gift or
Oh, well,
you're just
no,
sharing it's
that's
part
just
of
a
the gift?
practice. That is
Okay.
something that I do daily that's very powerful. So, drop first of all, I do 30 solid whole body breaths. And this is, the wondrous Wim Hof. I'm just fully
Mhm.
in through my nose and out through my mouth, because that creates profound synergy throughout all dimensions of our embodiment. And 30 seconds, 30 breaths, all the way in through my nose, all the way out through my mouth. I get really centered. I tune into my heart, and I'm like, what do I want to feel? What do I want to experience and embody? And I go through that tapping process in a really powerful way. I say everything out loud. I infuse it with vision and power and life and the frequencies of my flavor of love in my heart, and that's daily. I do have a 45-minute diamond DNA power activation that I would love to gift everyone on the call, which is extraordinarily thorough. It works through all the dimensions of our embodiment, and then our life, our lived experience. So creative expression, health and vitality, our relationships that we're aligning to, our finances, our creative service and legacy in the world. It's very well-rounded and thorough. So that is, do you want me to provide the link now, or do you Are you gonna?
You can say it if you want to. I will definitely be posting it on your page, but feel
Okay.
free if you want to shout it out, because this will, especially for anyone just listening, that's helpful.
Yes. So if you simply go to soundcloud.com/Solara Sophia Rose, it's going to be the very first activation at the top of the page, the Diamond DNA power activation. And so that is also another tool. I encourage you to just melt back, receive, and soak the fullness of that transmission in.
Diamond DNA power activation.
Yeah.
Yes. That sounds awesome. So, I love that you shared, like part of your routine, because I think that's helpful for people to know. Even though everybody gets to choose, your own routine and what works for you, I really enjoy hearing, what other people are up to in their daily practice. And that really is unique to every individual. So thanks for
Yeah.
sharing. And I really love the power statements that you're making to your physical body, because that's where we live while we're here.
Yeah.
That's our vehicle. It's
Yeah.
important to keep that empowered and love it.
Yeah, yeah. And we're really receiving the instructions that we're giving ourselves. I just, at certain moments, as we open and expand into greater octaves of consciousness and becoming more self-aware, when I go into spaces of deep, pristine silence and body listening, I can hear my brain, my actual physical brain and my mind reverberating back my dialogue to me, and see that rippling throughout the quantum holographic field. And that's just being able to see the energy and to recognize that it's all an echo. And I realized the profundity and the importance of my inner dialogue. I'm like, whoa, when it drops in at that level, you become really aware of what's happening and how the mind is receiving and absorbing information. It's certainly an encouragement to shift the dialogue, and to be conscientiously selecting what it is that we're coding ourselves with and architecting. And then there's also a purification of data and all the elements of our world as well. What are we surrounding ourselves by? What are we ingesting via media, via music, all the ways that we take in and absorb information. And I have, for my own self, just a high standard for purity in my experience, even with my food. I'm always looking for the most fresh, vibrant, organic, full rainbow spectrum of foods that I can give to myself to nourish myself. What is the highest quality um, data and life intelligence that I can be infusing myself with in all regards, to create a fully integrative, holistic, life and way of being that really reflects back the frequencies of my most expanded self and essence.
Mm. Yeah, and having that silence, that space of silence,
Mhm.
that's so powerful. I like that you mentioned that, because and I'm very aware of sounds and frequencies, and I even when I, like the same, when I eat food, I can feel the effect. It's almost like it has a voice, it speaks to you too. Everything's speaking on some level and interacting with the body. So to have that silence, that quiet time to tune in and really listen, what's happening here? What's the effect? What's my mind saying? What's my body saying? What is the food that I eat or the things that I ingest saying? And to be able to hear that and then edit as needed. Maybe I don't need that frequency, and maybe I'll bring in more of this one.
Yeah. And that's the fun of, the journey of exploration. We get to just tune into all these micro shifts and adjustments as we go. And this is, the power of living in and being in flow, and just go, okay, that worked last week.
Yeah.
It's not resonating anymore, because we're going through these expansions quite exponentially and rapidly now. What does work now? What feels exciting now? And it could even just be on a day-to-day, moment to moment
Yeah.
basis, just that constant tuning in and checking in and having fun with exploring the diverse array of life that is available to us to experience. That's the novelty, and the breathtaking beauty of being in these delicious human bodies, having a human experience, is that there's infinite potentials and possibilities and choices for us. There's always more to expand into and to explore and to align with and to create and to experience in our reality. And that's non-ending novelty, non-ending beauty. And if we don't perceive it to exist yet, but it's an awareness that's dropping in around a vision that we would love to create and explore, well, we are the infinite divine source creator of our reality. If it's dropping in, that's, then we get to innovate, truly innovate and pioneer new realities and new experiences for ourselves. So if it's arising in our heart or our visionary space, then that means it's a possibility for us to augment and bring forth into our physicalized reality. And, this is where the space and place where I really thrive with people. I love to just go into the space of pure creation. And I believe that that is what we are stepping into as a whole. Of course, as we purify our inner beingness and begin to distill our consciousness, and we go through that deep purification, we see how that's mirrored and reflected in the outer world with the systems in our world, where it's like, okay, we don't have to opt into these systems anymore. And we're in such a beautiful, tender, sacred, and truly thrilling space as a collective, where we're just releasing and cleansing and purifying through all these ways of being that really did serve us at the turn of the century. But we're just so much more evolved than we were now. We have so much more wisdom and intelligence, and there's newness for us to bring forth in all of, systemically in our own being, but then also in the systems of our world. And we're just at this point now where we're really looking at, okay, what serves us still, and let's bring those pieces forward. What doesn't serve us, let's bless that and thank that for the ways that it did serve when it did serve. And let's choose something new. Let's step into what is harmonious and aligned, what is for the grand flourishing of the self, for us as individuals and us as a collective organism and being and living, breathing, dynamic ecosystem, and to just be willing to move with those shifts and changes. That's how we create a new world, a new earth. And we're just right in the, we're at the crux point of, evolving into something entirely new. And what it is so magnificent. It's so magnificent. Worlds of light and worlds of harmony and beauty and love and co-creation and exploration, and really traversing and learning and mastering all of these intertechnological capacities that we have, and experiencing a super longevity and youthfulness as a species, carrying out our chronological age in ways that we've never, that we haven't seen in a very long time, I'll say, through the embodiment of timelessness and becoming interstellar beings. There's so much there, and that's, in a very advanced evolution of our species. But we're here now, where we're really starting to evolve and activate the 13-strand DNA, which allows us to harness more of our full potential that, the ancient Egyptians were harnessing as they were bringing in these structures from the celestial realms. And they were harnessing their capacities of consciousness as a whole unit together. And what they were able to create was remarkable and notable and profound, and we still have those capacities. So we're remembering that. And what we'll see in the future of humanity is a lot of those capacities coming back online, and us creating in entirely new ways that are more reflective of the sophisticated intelligence and technologies that we have access to within our own vessels.
Yes, beautiful. I love that. And we are at the end of our hour. Is there anything that you would love to fit in that I didn't ask you, or that didn't come up, that you'd like to share with the audience before we end?
Let's see what wants to come through. Well, one, I just want to say thank you for welcoming me into this space, and for sharing this beautiful conversation with me today. It's been a ball, and just a reminder that our greatest ultimate purpose is alignment to our true joy in this here and now, what it is that brings us a sense of holistic aliveness and joy and life satisfaction, and love, and to really stay connected to that golden thread within our own being and within our own experience, and to trust it and to follow it and to just keep taking those steps, because the path truly does. And this is, well, the majesty of flow and trust, and living in alignment, is that, sometimes we don't always know how it's going to unfold, but if we just keep saying yes to our true joy, our heart's desire in the moment, and we trust it, and we yes, and we yes, and we yes, that path blossoms before us. So it's living in that deep trust and that deep knowing that as we take the steps, each independent step, that path will unfurl and bloom before us, and to stay with that. So, there's a lot of power and freedom in that space, because we don't have to have it all figured out. We don't know exactly how it's going to come into being, or how, the resources are going to show up, or who's going to, what the alignments are going to look like, or what we need to plan for. We just keep saying yes. And it's all revealed to us as we live into it. So, trust yourself, follow your joy, and have fun. That's what we're here for.
Great notes to end on. Love, love, love that. Always follow your joy. And thank you so much, Solara. It was really lovely having you on. It was so much fun to just hear you speak and share. And thanks for being generous with sharing your history and your unfolding, and even, the moving through the shadow and all of that. I think that's so helpful to everyone. So we'll end there. Thank you all for listening. I really love sharing this work with you so that you're not alone. We're all on this journey together, ascending together, and you have support. So just bless you all. I love everybody, and have a beautiful day or evening wherever you are. Namaste.